Somewhere along the way, men were told that laying their hearts bare was noble, that revealing every scar, every fear, every shadow was the path to love. But what they weren't told is this: not everyone is worthy of that truth. And when you hand over your soul too soon to someone who hasn't earned the right to carry it, you don't find connection. You invite chaos. It starts small. You open up because you think it will bring you closer. You talk about the things that keep you up at night, the weight you carry in silence, hoping she'll understand, hoping she'll stay. And maybe she will, but something subtle begins to shift. That look in her eyes, once filled with admiration, begins to flicker. Not because she's cruel, not because she lacks empathy, but because deep down she's watching the foundation of your strength tremble, and it scares her. She may say she wants you to open up, and in part she does. But what she really craves is a man who has looked into the darkness and stood tall. A man who has battled his demons and wears his scars with quiet pride. Not someone who bleeds all over her and asks her to clean up the mess. When you make her the keeper of your unresolved fears, when you ask her to hold what you haven't yet learned to carry yourself, it's not intimacy you create, it's imbalance. Respect doesn't survive that imbalance. You may not see it at first, but it slips away with every confession that feels more like a cry for help than an act of strength. And without respect, love becomes heavy. It decays under the weight of pity and pressure. She may stay, but not as your partner. She stays like a nurse stays with a patient. And no woman wants to fall in love with a man she has to heal. This doesn't mean you should hide. It doesn't mean you should wear a mask so tight it suffocates you. But it does mean you must learn to filter your vulnerability through wisdom. Not every wound needs to be revealed the moment it's felt. Not every ache is meant to be shared. Some pains are meant to be mastered in solitude before they're spoken aloud. Because when a man shows that he can face the fire alone, when he can struggle without losing his center, when he speaks not from desperation, but from resolution, that's when a woman listens differently. That's when she leans in with trust instead of worry. That's when she sees not just the man in front of her, but the foundation beneath him, solid, unshaken. And then there's the money. The weight of financial pressure is real. But dragging that burden into a new relationship like it's a badge of honor is not vulnerability. It's projection. When you sit across from her and confess your financial ruin, your uncertainty, your panic, hoping she'll still see you the same, you're missing the truth. She didn't come to carry your weight. She came to feel safe in your presence. And safety cannot exist when the ground beneath her feet is crumbling. This doesn't mean you should lie. It means you should lead. Face your situation, work through it, build something, even if it's small, but make it yours. Then if you choose to share that part of your life, you do it from a place of progress, not from the bottom of a pit. Because a woman can admire your climb, but she cannot build the ladder for you. And the past, those mistakes you can't take back, they matter, but not in the way you think. Telling her everything might feel like honesty, but if you haven't yet learned from it, if those wounds are still fresh and bleeding, then it's not wisdom you're offering. It's a mess. Let her see the man who has risen from his failures, not the one still tangled in them. Let her feel the strength of your journey, not the noise of your shame. And what about your insecurities? The quiet voices that tell you you're not enough, not worthy, not strong. Those voices are your enemies. They are your battle. Fight them in the silence. Beat them in your own mind. Because the moment you hand those insecurities to her and ask her to soothe them, you've given her power over you that she never asked for. You've made her the validator of your worth, and no one can hold that role for long without eventually resenting it. You want her to feel something deep for you? Then let her feel your presence like a mountain, still, grounded, unshaken. Let her see that you can feel pain and still move forward, that you can face darkness and still choose the light, because that is the man she will follow. That is the man she will trust. That is the man she will never want to lose, not because you gave her every piece of you too soon, but because you earned her loyalty with the strength you showed before you ever asked for hers. If you believe that spilling every fear, doubt, and crack in your armor to a woman will deepen the bond between you, you're stepping into dangerous ground. You may think that vulnerability is the key to intimacy, and yes, to a certain extent, it is. But what she truly craves is the confidence that you can hold yourself up when life tries to knock you down. She wants to feel that when the storm comes, you'll be the one standing, not begging for shelter. Because when you constantly lean on her for emotional rescue, when you make her your anchor instead of being hers, something subtle but powerful begins to shift. The polarity that drew her in begins to crumble. She becomes the one expected to hold steady while you fall apart. And no matter how much she loves you, no matter how much she wants to be there for you, that burden will slowly wear her down. One day, without even knowing exactly why, she'll feel something's changed. The attraction will fade, the connection will weaken. She'll say she doesn't feel the same, and she'll mean it. The truth is, before you ask someone to stand beside you, you must learn to stand on your own. Your finances, your past, your wounds, your fears, those are yours to deal with. Not because you're alone, but because no one should be expected to fix what you haven't even tried to face yourself. Respect isn't something you get just because you ask for it. You earn it through how you carry yourself, how you show up in the world. A woman should be a partner, a companion, an enhancer of your already built life, not the scaffolding holding your life together. There's a quiet power in restraint. Some things are sacred. Some truths are not meant to be handed out like candy to anyone willing to listen. A man who commands respect knows the weight of his own story and chooses when and how to reveal it. He doesn't perform his wounds to earn sympathy. He transforms those wounds into wisdom. That's what draws her in. That's what makes her trust you. Not the words you say, but the steadiness you bring. When she sees that your foundation isn't built on her approval, but on your own self-respect, she'll see you as more than a man. She'll see you as a leader. And that's when she'll walk beside you not out of obligation, but out of desire. Many men are caught off guard when a woman suddenly becomes cold or distant. They thought everything was going fine. She laughed, she called, she stayed close. Then, almost overnight, she changes, and they're left wondering what happened. What they don't realize is that attraction is not about how intensely you feel for her. It's about how she feels in your presence. When a man overexposes himself too quickly, when he lays everything bare too soon, he loses the very thing that made her curious: mystery, depth, strength. You might think you're showing honesty. You might believe that being emotionally transparent will prove your love. But what you're actually doing is removing the challenge, the excitement, the polarity. And boredom is the death of desire. A woman doesn't fall for a man who spills every emotion at the first sign of intimacy. She falls for the man who knows himself so well, who is so secure in who he is, that he doesn't need to hand over every page of his inner life just to feel worthy. He knows when to share. He knows when to hold back. And that restraint is magnetic. Here's something most men never hear. Women test you, not to play games, not to manipulate, but because deep down, they need to know if you're solid. If your sense of self can weather their uncertainty, if your emotional footing is strong enough to hold even when the tide shifts. And when you fail that test, when you panic, when you chase, when you beg for answers, you're not proving how much you care. You're proving that you're not in control, that your identity depends too much on her reactions. That's when the respect begins to erode. A woman feels safe when she senses that your world doesn't fall apart based on her moods. She trusts a man who doesn't waver, who isn't thrown by silence, who doesn't crumble under distance. And yet so many men think the solution is to open up more, to explain, to plead, to prove. But the more you do that without emotional discipline, the more you tip into neediness. And neediness is not romantic, it's exhausting. Containment is not about bottling things up. It's about strength. It's about knowing your truth and knowing when to share it. It's about offering your depth as a privilege, not a burden. The man who commands real attention does not overshare. He reveals, slowly, with intention, like a story worth savoring. His confidence is not loud, it's steady, quiet, rooted, and that kind of confidence draws people in without a single word. She doesn't fall in love with what you tell her. She falls in love with how she feels when she's around you. If she feels challenged, inspired, if she senses depth she hasn't yet fully explored, She stays curious. She stays engaged. But the moment she feels like she already has all of you, that there's nothing left to uncover, the mystery fades. The fire cools. So you have to ask yourself, are you building curiosity? Are you creating the space for her to invest? Or are you handing her everything, hoping she'll stay because you showed her how much you feel? Because that difference will define how she sees you, not just in the beginning, but in the long run. And the reason so many men wake up one day feeling lost, wondering why she doesn't respect them anymore, is because somewhere along the way, they abandoned their mission. They stopped striving, stopped building, stopped leading. And no matter how loving or patient she is, something inside her begins to sense that loss, that drift away from purpose, that surrender to comfort. And that shift changes everything. You must never place her at the center of your world. Not because love doesn't matter, but because without your own center, without your own fire, you become a shell of the man she first chose. She can feel it. She sees it in the way you hesitate, in the way your ambition dulls, in how you make her approval your compass instead of your own vision. Women are wired to feel where you're headed, not just in status, but in spirit. They are drawn to the man with direction, with momentum, with inner power. And if you let that go, for love, for comfort, for peace, you lose the very essence that made you magnetic to her in the first place. There's something deeply unsettling about watching a man lose his way. The moment he sacrifices his vision, his purpose, just to keep the peace, something inside him dies. And when that happens, resentment creeps in. It doesn't happen all at once, but it builds. And when a woman starts to resent the man she's with, she doesn't do it maliciously. It's more instinctive than anything else. She'll challenge him, test him, ask questions. Not because she's trying to break him, but because she needs to know if he still has the strength, the direction, the clarity that drew her to him in the first place. Most men, though, don't pass this test. They shrink away. They apologize. They comply. They think, if I just make her happy, if I just do what she wants, everything will be fine. But that's where they go wrong. A woman doesn't want to lead a man. She wants to trust that he knows where he's going. She wants to know that he's still the man who has a purpose, a mission, a reason for waking up every morning. She doesn't need him to be perfect, but she needs him to be grounded. And when he lets his mission slip, when he makes her his entire purpose, she feels it. And in the back of her mind, respect fades. You have to remember who you were before you met her. What was the fire that burned inside you? What goals did you chase? What life were you building? She remembers that man, the one who wasn't afraid to take risks, the one who had ambition, who stood for something. But if you let that fire die out, if you let your mission fade into the background while you make her your everything, she'll notice. She'll respect you less, and slowly she'll begin to pull away. Not because she wants to hurt you, but because she can't admire a man who doesn't know where he's going anymore. The truth is, a man without a purpose, without that deep-seated mission, is a man who's lost. And a lost man is unattractive. He's unreliable. He's weak. So ask yourself, have you abandoned your purpose? Have you let your fire dim? If so, it's time to reignite it. Rediscover the man you once were, the one who was clear on his direction, his mission, his purpose. When you do that, she'll feel it. She'll respect it. And most importantly, she'll admire the man you're becoming again. When she starts pulling away, when the warmth starts fading, and you begin to wonder what changed, understand this. You stop being the man she could trust to lead. And confronting that reality is uncomfortable because it forces you to ask yourself some hard questions. Am I the man who commands respect, or am I the man who folds under pressure? Women don't love blindly, they evaluate. Not in a manipulative way, but in a way that's hardwired into them. For centuries, a woman's survival, her children's survival, depended on her ability to choose a strong, capable man, one who wouldn't break under pressure. And deep down, she's still evaluating you. She's watching how you handle setbacks. She's paying attention to how you deal with conflict, how you respond when things go wrong. And if she senses emotional weakness in you, she will feel it before you even do. She'll notice when you make excuses instead of taking responsibility, when you avoid facing your problems. And when that happens, she'll begin to pull away. Not because she's cruel, but because she can't afford to be with a man who can't manage his own life. She needs someone she can rely on, and especially when things get tough. And believe me, things will get tough. Every relationship faces storms, financial stress, emotional upheaval, uncertainty. And in those moments, she'll look at you and ask herself, can I trust this man to lead? Or is he going to fall apart and expect me to pick up the pieces? If she feels like she has to take charge, like she has to hold everything together while you drown in self-pity or distractions, she'll start to lose respect. And once respect fades, love will follow. So many men make the mistake of thinking that a relationship is about avoiding conflict, about making her happy, about being nice. But that's not it. A real relationship is about trust. It's about being a man she can rely on, especially in the darkest moments. And the hard truth is, if you're not the man who can be trusted with reality, if you've been dodging responsibility, hiding from your problems, numbing yourself with distractions, then you already know why she's pulling away. The solution isn't to beg for her attention. It's not to smother her with affection or ask her 100 times what's wrong. The answer is simple but not easy. Become the man worth staying with. Get your life in order. Fix your finances. Get your body healthy. Build something meaningful. Face the demons you've been avoiding. Become unshakable and do it for you. Not just to win her back, but because you owe it to yourself. The paradox is this. When you become the man who doesn't need her validation to feel strong, she will respect you more than ever. That's the ultimate test. At the end of the day, it's not about whether she stays or leaves. It's about whether you can look in the mirror and respect the man you see. And if you can't, then why should anyone else?